Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy is suspected of having killed as many as 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series that investigates the crimes that shocked the nation.
The thing everybody thought they knew wasn't the whole story.
John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now. Devil in Disguise. Only on Peacock.
Happy Halloween, everyone. This is Jeff from Garden of Doom, and I'm really pleased to be here on this special spooky day for a spooky crossover simulcast edition with the Inhuman Experience. Joining me here is Bobby Bladez and the Bobby Anthem. Bells, why don't you say hello to the spookasoids, or whatever we're going to call the crowd today.
Well, how do I get a the?
The what? The what?
Bobby. It's probably best if we don't revisit the word I used, and the I don't know, it just came to me, man. I'm that creative.
The one and only Bobby Anthem. If anybody is impersonating Bobby Anthem on Facebook, please stop. We are issuing a cease and desist.
Right. Apparently I have a doppelganger, but what is happening, man? Yes, we are here in the garden. We got the Inhumans back in the garden, mashing it up for Halloween. Dr. Freakenstein and my ace.
I forgot my name for a moment there. I'm always caught off guard. It never fails.
Yeah, man. Apparently we're pros at this, man. But we got the call from Jeff. Jeff said, "Hey, let's do this thing," and we're like, you know what? It's a special occasion. Let's make it happen.
Yeah, it's Halloween. There's no trick or treating. We're staying in our house. Most of our cities are still in the red, so why not?
Yeah. And really, Bobby Bladez is the perfect last name for Halloween.
Yeah, and, I could always dress up in my hakama and my hori and put a sword on my side and just walk outside and be a Ronin for Halloween.
Sure. I would take Bobby Bladez over Michael Myers.
Yeah, I'm not going to stab anybody, though.
Oh, okay. Well, maybe Michael Myers. Or at least Mike Myers.
I want sharks with frickin' laser beams.
All right, so everyone, by now you've figured out that this is pretty much an impromptu thing. It was partly my little surprise, and I conscripted these gentlemen to help me out with it. But it is Halloween, and I got to thinking, what's going on about Halloween? It seems like, Garden of Doom and Inhuman Experience both explore concepts and themes that seem spooky and otherworldly, exploring the demon realm, if you will. And that seems very Halloween-y, so why not do an episode? So I did a little bit of research. I actually got here backwards, but I'm not going to say why, because that's going to spoil another episode that I'm planning. As it turns out, as is often the case, that the fellows here are also planning an episode similar on their show as well. I don't know if that will be a crossover, or we'll just do like a Monday Night War or a Wednesday Night War thing, and we'll do the same show and compete. So anyway, so I looked at it, and we're going to start with the what probably most people are familiar with, and that is, the Eurocentric legends of Halloween. So Halloween, most people associate it with the Celtic festival of Samhain. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. I'm not Gaelic. I don't speak Celt, but that's probably close enough. So
that's what I've always heard.
We were corrected
great.
on that.
This is amazing.
We were.
Yes, it's actually called Samhain.
Oh, wow,
pronounced
very good.
Pronounced like that. So yeah, we got corrected on that last year.
Samhain. Okay.
Something like that, yeah.
Samhain. Well, okay, that's fine. So if we say Samhain or Samhain, audience, you know what we're talking about.
Yeah.
Anyway, we're going to eventually get to Halloween, so that'll be easy, unless that's pronounced Halloweena. All right, so everyone probably associates it with bonfires and druids and wearing animal skins and things like that. And why is that? Well, it is what you think it is. It's to ward off ghosts and evil spirits, but actually really ghosts. And there's a reason for that too. So let's back up a little bit And who were the Celts? So most of us think about the Celts as the people who populated the British Isles before the Saxons invaded. And after the Saxons came the Romans, and then came the Normans, et cetera, et cetera. Actually, the Danes were in there in the middle. So around 2,000 years ago, the United Kingdom and northern France were occupied primarily by the Celts. But the Celts didn't start there. So this is a little bit Halloweeny as well. The Celts actually, as far as historians can tell, started sort of in the Balkan area, sort of in the pits of the Danube, which is if anyone doesn't know, is a European river which sort of meanders its way basically northwesterly throughout Europe, Central Europe, going up into Germany. So they know that the Celts basically followed the Danube and then headed west, because the Celts had a very specific tradition, which is also sort of Halloweeny, and that is that they built wicker men to hold their prisoners and often burn their prisoners. So traces of burnt skeletons and wood in wicker man shapes and in wicker boxes and anything you can think of, including what you saw in Pirates of the Caribbean, they were able to trace the path of the Celts who, maybe they were following the river. Maybe they were being chased by people who were tired of their friends and family being burned in wicker men. But whatever the reason, they ended up in northern France and the UK. So around 2,000 years ago, that's sort of when history, or recorded history, started catching up with the Celtic tradition. And it has a lot to do with the Romans coming and successfully conquering most of the British Isles around 43 AD. And then they ruled over Britain for 400 years, or around 400 years. So, as the Romans are wont to do, they allowed people to practice most of their own religious customs, but they would have them take Romanized names and use Romanized gods. The Romans obviously converted to Christianity. I think it was around 100 AD, and Catholic is most associated with Rome, still is, but at the time, Catholic actually means universal. There was only one Christian church, so it was Catholic, lowercase c, later became uppercase c when there were Protestants, when there were other kinds of Christians, which is only partly true, because there were always other kinds of Christians, but they were considered sects. The Essenes, the Cathars, you've probably heard of some of those. So anyway, we don't want to get too much into that kind of history, but the Romans are sort of our historians here. But the interesting part is that it was always this festival time, sort of the separation between summer and winter, and light and darkness, the end of the harvest. And the legend was that this was the time of year when the fabric between the worlds, between death and life, not light, were the thinnest. So the ghosts would come, and that's what all the dancing was, and that's what the bonfires were for. It was to keep away the ghosts. And the Druids were considered the strongest then, and the most powerful there. Oh, we just got Samhain is the actual pronunciation.
There we go.
Which is terrific, except that now we are going to skip a little bit ahead to the 8th century, where Pope Gregory III, obviously a Catholic pope, designated November 1st All Saints' Day. So we now have All Saints' Day, and October 31st, of course, was called All Hallows' Eve, which became Halloween. So there was always these festivals the night before, because the night is the scary time. That's when you had to, gather in your group around the fire to get brave. And I guess you had the prophecies, but it was probably mostly just to feel comfort and strength in numbers. And then Samhain, as we've just learned, or Samhain, became All Saints' Day, and the festival the night before was All Hallows' Eve. So we know hallowed means sacred. Basically, hallowed ground is sacred ground, blessed ground. Some say Jesus H. Christ. The H stands for hallowed. I'm not sure if that's correct or not.
I thought it meant hamburger. I really
Hamburger.
did.
That makes sense, too. I mean, hamburgers are beautiful.
And I'm a vegetarian, so that's, well.
Oh, well, then that makes it true. You also have a PhD in Anunnaki. The funny thing is we're going to get sort of there in a little bit. So, anyway, we talked about how the date marked the end of summer and the end of the harvest and the beginning of winter. And, winter's dark. Dark is associated with death. And we talked about the blurring of the worlds and the ghosts coming to Earth the night before. We talked about the Druids and how their predictions and their powers were considered the strongest at this time, and that sacrifices were offered, which is tied into the costumes, which were normally animal skins, including their heads as well. The bonfires were ignited, and then they used the embers of those bonfires to actually light the hearth fires in their homes and halls, which was both symbolic and real protection against both cold and dark. So the European tradition, of course, migrated overseas to America slowly because, the United States of America, the colonies first started mostly with Puritans, and that tradition lasted for a long time. We all know about the Salem witch trial and all of that lovely history. We also know about the lovely history of slavery. And interestingly enough, this ties into our little story of Halloween as well, because Halloween took root in the South more slowly than in some of the northern neighbors. And actually, Maryland, which is where I am, is listed as the first state where Halloween, or colony, where Halloween sort of took off. Well, it was a state by then, because we still had the Puritan tradition in New England. But a lot of Halloween closely overlaps, perhaps accidentally, with West African traditions and what people often think of as voodoo or Santorini, Santeria rather, which Santorini is an island, but those are sort of mergers of Catholicism, Western African traditions, and some other things that sort of occurred independently in different islands and different cultures in the Americas and the Caribbean on their own. But because the African Americans would embrace those cultures, of course, their white counterparts, well, not counterparts, the overlords, the slave owners and the non-slave owners that were white would sort of reflexively be against any of those traditions. So it took a lot longer for it to break through. I don't know what the breakthrough point was, but obviously it broke through. Things are really sketchy on that, but some of these cultures and these religious beliefs which are tied to Halloween were used even after the Civil War, and they were part of the sort of the boogeyman, scary stuff that allowed the Reconstruction laws to be as terrible as they were, and items like that. Now we're going to move off of that sort of heavy stuff, because that's not what this show is necessarily about. It was just sort of unavoidable. But to take us on our story, the interesting part, well, this was all interesting, at least to me, and I hope to everyone else. Well, before we break into that, Bobbies, do you want to weigh in on anything? I've been giving like a little speech here.
I think you covered it pretty much.
Okay, I will continue. So the interesting thing to me was that when I first started doing the research, I actually didn't stumble upon the European stuff. For whatever reason, whatever links I clicked to started taking me to other places, and not purposefully, but all of these places were in the Southern Hemisphere, different cultures, also celebrating similar types of events, but the same time of year, which wouldn't make sense because their seasons were changing too, but not summer to winter or fall to winter. It would be spring to summer or summer to spring, but whatever it was warm. So it wasn't the same kind of light and dark, hot and cold type of situation. Nevertheless, things were going on at the same time, even though in the Southern Hemisphere, if you went by the same physical reasons, their Halloween should be really in May. But that's not the case. It's been the same, and it predates European contact. And that just made me really go down a few rabbit holes. And without there being a spoiler, but being a little bit of a tease, and because we're with the Inhumans, there is an extraterrestrial component to this.
It always comes back around to aliens.
Well, I'm going to leave it at extraterrestrial.
Well, I'm gonna drag it to aliens.
I hope you do. That's good. That'll be excellent. But yes, there is an extraterrestrial component, which is the only thing that really makes sense in all of these contexts. So let's take a few examples. Peru, they have a festival called, and I'm sure I'm going to mash up this pronunciation as well, Aya Marque Killa. 3 words, A-Y-A, second word M-A-R-C-A-Y, third word K-I-L-L-A, which sounds like killer.
It sounds so hardcore, man.
It really does. And this is even more hardcore because it literally means in English translated to month of carrying corpses.
That's dark. That's beautifully dark.
Yeah. So we're starting to see some of these commonalities that we like to stumble upon on both our shows, sort of these collective memories, collective myths, collective, sort of pan-cultural phenomena. So there's similar types of traditions in Tonga, other Pacific islands, also with the Australian Aborigines. In fact, the Australian Aborigines, there's a story called Water Girls of the Pleiades, and that's a star system. And there's also some in both northern and southern hemispheres. There's similar, northern hemisphere, but not what you consider Eurocentric cultures. That there are festivals and holidays with very similar concepts. Again, before significant European contact, including the Hopi Indians, the Hindus, the Persians, the Japanese, and certain Guatemalan peoples as well. And the common thread always seems to be honoring the dead, and very often honoring the dead of flood survivors. So there we go. We're back to the flood myth.
Mm-hmm. Everything comes around to aliens and floods.
So this is going to get better for you, because in Mesopotamia, which obviously is well before there's any European contact, because there were no people in Europe that could contact when there was Mesopotamia, the month of what we call November, they called it Mordad, which translated to English means angel of death. So that's also pretty fast. Yeah, I knew you would like that. And they have the festival of ascendancy of the Pleiades at midnight on October 31st. Egypt was dedicated to something called Al or At Ayar. I'm probably pronouncing that wrong also. 2 words. I believe it's A-T. It's possible it's A-L. My handwriting is awful. Hyphen Hayar, which is H-Y-R. And this is where they commemorated a world-destroying deluge. Sounds familiar?
Mm-hmm.
And dead souls lost to a flood. This is parallel to a Hebrew story in the Talmud, and again, that Aboriginal water girls of the Pleiades story. So, what are the Pleiades? It's a star system, often called the Seven Sisters or the Seven Stars of Death. So what happens when the Pleiades appear around October 31st and early November at their highest point, their apex of at the sky midnight? You can see the Taurid meteor shower. So what the rationalization is that the meteor shower looked like souls sort of flying through the sky in synchronization with the seven stars. And because that was everywhere, that's sort of how explains why all of these cultures during different times, different places in the world without contact with each other, all sort of came to the same conclusion, which even if that is actually correct, which there's no way of proving or disproving it necessarily, although some of the festivals talk about the Pleiades or the, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. It's Pleiades.
I've always heard Pleiades.
So have I, but I don't know. I thought it was Samhain. So
good point.
Yeah. Maybe there's a astronomer or at least a student of Greek who can correct us. So there is an extraterrestrial component. Is it alien? I don't know. I'm going to let Bobby Anthem speculate a little bit on that. But that's the Halloween stuff, and I thought it was really interesting how it had this extraterrestrial component, and a lot of it tied to floods, which floods happened around the world at different times, presumably because of different climate change, but also the ice ages when glaciers would recede and presumably overflow rivers and inland seas and take out coastal cities and communities, and probably with some disastrous effects when there were mudslides and all the other wonderful stuff that happens with that. So it's I don't think it all happened at the same time. I think it probably happened at different times based on latitudes.
Right.
Well, does that dictionary give us phonetics, Professor?
Well, according to the vocal recording, it's called Pleiades.
Pleiades. See, I'm screwing this up. I am not a professional.
Hey, we get things wrong all the time.
Okay. Well, all right. Well, that's the end of my research and sort of my semi educational path through the Garden of Doom into Halloween and getting us into the inhuman aspect of it. That seems like a good time to open this up for some discussion.
Well, I really like how the notes and the research that you did tied together a lot of things. And before we started recording, you said that there was a lot of stuff that people would probably already know. And yeah, there were bits and pieces of a lot of that stuff that I had heard before, but I feel like you did a really good job of tying it all together and showing how connected they all are, with cultures that didn't interact with each other, but all recognizing the same basic things around the same time. And I was going to say it's kind of creepy and kind of eerie how that came together, but I mean, it's all based around things that are supposed to be pretty creepy and eerie anyway.
Yeah, it's just crazy how the same event was interpreted by so many different peoples the same way.
Yeah.
They all saw it as like death and life coming, where you could easily see a meteor shower and think that was aliens coming, or that was, gods at war or something, but they all came to the same conclusion, which could bring it back to, well, aliens. Maybe someone told them how to interpret it.
That's what I like to believe. Probably not likely, but yeah. It's
always fun. I mean, listen, there's, intelligent design doesn't have to be a deity, or at least a deity as, most major religions recognize it. Just because we can figure out the commonality of what happened in the sky, all around the earth, doesn't explain why they all interpreted it similarly. So that was a little bit crazy.
Yeah.
So what do you guys think about when you think of Halloween? What are your associations? And trivial or deep, or maybe it's been altered by this little lecture series we just did?
I can say it's definitely been altered. Not too much, though. I mean, there was, like, going back into the past when I was getting into paganism, there was, that a similar history that you brought up, although I never heard of, like, the the other ones, like with the floods in going into the southern hemisphere.
Me either.
Mostly it was Eurocentric. It's very Eurocentric when I look back at it, and we're going back to the time of the Druids and how they would put out offerings to appease the wandering spirits so they wouldn't stay in their they wouldn't like hang around, because Halloween night was supposed to be when the veil between the living and the dead was at its thinnest. So there's that. And that was kind of, well, as a kid, Halloween was all about candy. And then, like I said, as I got older, I celebrated Halloween in a very different way. And I would actually put out offerings of apples or, something or other for the spirits that were passing by from this world and moving on to the next.
Yeah, and you know what? I always associated the Salem witch trials with Halloween, probably because that's when those movies would show up or when we cover it in class. And I'm not sure if they're related in any direct or indirect way. I mean, I suppose it's possible that people who brought these beliefs or had these beliefs did their festivals in New Hampshire and Massachusetts and New England, and the Puritan majority sort of took that as witchcraft.
Yeah, Jeff, the funny thing about that is, though, a lot of what happened in Salem was mostly over land disputes and people who just didn't like one another, so they just claimed witch. There was actually very little witchcraft done there, so.
Or maybe the witches won, and that's just what they want you to think.
Yeah, maybe, yeah.
No,
the witches were in hiding, and they just let the stupid people among them say, "Oh, this person, I saw her dancing in the forest with Satan," that kind of thing.
I do think that if we look at most disputes throughout history and right now, it's usually a battle over resources, whether it's food, water, land, or oil or gold. It's sort of one of those things, and there's usually some sort of religious or other kind of boogeyman moral imperative to sort of get the masses riled up, because otherwise you'd just be doing the work of the gentry.
Yeah,
but
true.
We're no longer just chucking people in water to see if they float.
Or putting stones on top of them.
Yeah.
Or measuring them on giant scales with ducks.
Yeah.
They did have the toe cups for a supposed witch. Like there was something that I was reading that if you had cuffed their thumbs and their toes together, they could not cast a spell or curse you or something like that. It would take all their power away, which is utterly ridiculous, but it's hilarious at the same time.
Who came to that conclusion?
Look in the Malleus Maleficarum. They've got ways to, like, how to find witches, how to dispose of witches. It's fucking crazy.
I'm sorry, look in the what?
The Malleus Maleficarum, the Hammer of the Witches.
Yeah, why don't you go into that for Jeff?
Of course, I just wasn't sure which book you were talking about.
Oh, okay, yeah. I don't know too much about it. I just know there were some of the most ridiculous things that I've ever heard. I'm actually going to look that up right now.
Yeah. Actually, Bobby Anthem, we were going to meet up and we were going to go into the vault and consult with the Malleus Maleficarum, the Dinosaurus, later on and study that. We were going to do some incantations. I went down a little bit of another rabbit hole with this because I was sort of stumbled upon some of these things accidentally and then some on purpose, like things that I associate with Halloween that really didn't have anything to do with Halloween, like Salem and like witches. So I stumbled upon black cats, and the whole thing about 9 lives all comes from, or at least apparently comes from, a poem or a book by a guy named James Baldwin, who wrote that a witch can occupy the body of a cat, well, its cat, because it has to be its cat, it's familiar, 9 times, and that's the maximum amount of time. So that's where the cat gets 9 lives. So the cat actually doesn't have 9 lives. The witch has 9 lives. After that, I guess the cat dies, or the witch can no longer use that cat to live, which begs the question: can the witch just get another cat and keep extending this through?
Right.
And maybe that's why cat people are cat ladies are considered witches, because they have a lot of
right,
cats.
because they're hoarding cats so that they can essentially live forever.
Right.
Bobby's like, they're hoarding cats.
Yeah,
I love
that's
that.
like their little immortality. I'm also wondering if there's a difference between a house cat and a tiger, or so.
Right.
I could not find the answers to that. Maybe because it's hard to believe that you're the first person to think of anything so absurd. But if anyone's going to do it, it's going to be this crazy brain right here.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I stumbled upon was the bad luck of walking under a ladder.
Mm-hmm.
And that also has zero to do with Halloween at all. And it's not exactly clear where it's from, but if we want to call it this, the scholarly consensus is that it dates back to ancient Egypt, that when the ladder was up against the wall, it formed a triangle. And triangles were sacred, and you don't break the sacred triangles.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah,
so it doesn't even necessarily have to be a ladder. It can be anything of that shape.
You would think, but I guess if they were doing work, they needed some sort of ladder or scaffolding. If you just put a pole up, I guess a plank of wood, but were there really planks? I don't know. This is what I found, but I guess whatever it is, it would be, that shape. And hey, maybe if you got a big thick log, but it was crooked, you could walk under that, and that wasn't considered bad luck. So that could be possible as well. And then there was one other, and that was the number 13. So here's the thing. If Dan Brown is to be believed, the number 13 became unlucky corresponding to Friday the 13th, because that's when I think Philip II, betrayed the Templars in France. But the number 13 being unlucky is like a whole bunch of really interesting theories on it. So, of course, we have that Judas was the 13th diner at the Last Supper. So, obviously Judas, as the story goes, betrayed Jesus, and so bad luck. But well before that, in Norse mythology, in Valhalla, Loki, the mischief maker, the trickster, was the 13th god to come to the table in Norse mythology, which was sort of considered bad luck as well. It broke the balance of the table of the gods, and bad things came from that. So, that's obviously. Go ahead.
I was not aware of that. I don't know as much about the Norse tales as I would like to. I got into a little bit of that when I was younger, but I was more into the Greek stories. So my knowledge of the Norse tales are much more limited. So yeah, I didn't know that part. That's interesting.
I didn't either, and there's a good reason why you would know the Norse tales much less than the Greek tales, because Norse mythology is all oral tradition, and Greek mythology was largely written, by a bunch of playwrights and authors. So there's a big difference there. Sort of similar to some of the other things we were talking about, like the Druids. That's mostly oral tradition, if not entirely oral tradition. In fact, only the Druids and royalty were allowed to read. Nobody else could read or write. If regular people could read or write, it was illegal. It was illegal to even have books and scrolls in sort of Roman and pre-Roman Britain.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, knowledge is power. That's exactly right. I wonder if that's where that came from too. So the other thing about 13 was that it seems like it even goes past that, and apparently 12 is considered the perfect number, and it just might be simply that the number that came after 12 was imperfect and disordered, and it might be as simple as that. Because in other cultures, 13 is sacred. Like in some of the Mesoamerican cultures, like the staircases up the step pyramids and ziggurats, it's 13 stairs at a time. There's usually 4 flights between levels, because the sacred number is 52, which is 13 times 4, obviously. And I think we talked about this before. There really should be 13 months. There's 13 moon cycles in a year, but it's sort of been skipped. So poor 13 has sort of always been considered bad luck, and I could not trace the origin of it. I only got back as far as, well, I don't know which was first, Egypt or Norse. But poor 13, in some cultures just considered unlucky, but in others considered very lucky. So I guess if you are a Mayan or an Aztec, then 13 is all right by you. But for the rest of us, it's sort of considered bad luck.
Yeah.
It's a lucky number for bakers.
Yeah.
And with that, I wanted to kind of take it back to the cat thing, because I had remembered reading something about the black cat crossing your path. And apparently that's only a thing in the United States. Places such as the UK, Japan, and Australia, it's the opposite. It is believed a sign of good luck and prosperity if a black cat enters your house, if a black cat meets you at your front door, or if you stroke a black cat 3 times. If you dream about a black cat, it's a sure sign that good luck is coming your way. So that's pretty cool. Apparently it's only a United States thing where black cats crossing the path is kind of bad luck superstition.
It's also further than that, because there's some sub-beliefs in that's similar, because I'm familiar with what you talked about. Some of it from before this week of going in down different barn holes. But one is that if the cat is approaching you, it's good luck. But if the cat is moving further from you, it's bad luck.
Oh, yeah. If the cat turns its back on you, that's bad luck.
Yeah. And, if they lift their tail and spray you, then it's really bad.
Then it's not a cat. That's a skunk.
Right. Well, Pepe Le Pew, was always chasing that poor little cat.
He couldn't tell the difference.
No, he could not. He was in love. Love is blind.
Love, yeah, that's what they call it.
Love is blind, but still has a scent of smell, apparently. Sense of smell. I put scent and scent of smell. Because, what's going on here?
One and the same, man.
Yeah, I think maybe I'm having a stroke. I'm not sure.
It's an olfactory.
Olfactory, yes. Yes, we don't want to be malodorous.
Don't want to smell like an old factory.
No. Yeah, definitely don't want to smell like an old... That's a good mnemonic device. Don't want to smell like an old factory. I'm going to remember that. Or some other sort of wacky superstitions that might be out there.
Oh, that buildings don't have 13th floors.
Yeah, that's right.
Well, yeah, that's all just tied into the 13 being thought of as an unlucky number.
Unless you're playing the Korean elevator game.
Yeah, which I will never do.
Okay, well, now you've got to talk about that.
Oh, Bobby, go for it. You know it way better than I do.
Well, I don't really. Jeff, are you familiar with the story of Elisa Lam?
I am not. Do tell.
Oh my goodness. Okay, so this young lady, Bladez, when did this happen? 2013, I think. I think it was 2013.
I think so. Don't quote us on that because we're not 100% sure. And,
I believe it was 2013.
Yeah, just let me pull it up real quick.
I'm kind of surprised you haven't heard of the Korean elevator game, Jeff. And I'm not saying this like this is something that everybody knows about, because I only learned of it a few years ago.
Okay, yeah, February 9th, 2013. You're correct.
It definitely sounds familiar, and I have a feeling that if you talk enough, it will strike a responsive chord. But right now, when you tell me, I think it had to do something with some kids that were jumping around in an elevator in like a hotel or office building, but maybe I'm confusing that with like one of those Final Destination movies.
Obviously, it started in Korea, and you have to do this in a building with an elevator, and the building has to have at least 10 floors, I believe.
Yep. At least one person, but it can be played with more. A public building with at least 10 floors and an elevator, of course. So to start the game, the player needs to enter the elevator. And when you enter the elevator, you have to press the 4th floor. Do not proceed if someone enters the elevator or if one of the players leave the elevator. If somebody does that, you have to start from the beginning. Number 2, you press the 2nd floor. Do not proceed if someone enters the elevator or if someone leaves the elevator. Press the 6th floor. Same rules apply. Back to the 2nd floor. And then to the 10th floor. Let's see. Yep, same rules. Then you press the 5th floor. The 7th step, if a woman enters the elevator at the 5th floor, do not look at her, do not speak, and do not talk to her. That woman is not human. If you do, she will keep you for her own. And then proceed to step 8. You press the 1st floor button. The elevator will either ascend or descend. If the elevator reaches the 1st floor, leave and do not look back. If the elevator reaches the 10th floor, leave and do not respond to the woman if she asks, where are you going or what's wrong? Her voice will be high when she asks that. And again, do not proceed if someone enters the elevator or one of the players leaves the elevator. And you are in the other world at this point.
Wow.
Yeah, the game takes you to another dimension, and if you screw it up, then your life is pretty much screwed. I don't know how to undo it.
Well, I mean, I would assume that everybody wins because you see them again, and if someone you don't see again, I guess either you never see again or they've been replaced with a demon, right?
No, see, that's the thing. They don't necessarily, if you screw it up, like, it's not like the person is dead or they disappear or whatever. Not necessarily anyway. But they may have I don't know if you want to call it a demon, but some inhuman, not Blazer me, but some inhuman entity attached to you for, I don't know how long. Maybe for the rest of your life. I don't know, but they make life very difficult for you. Okay.
Did you guys see season 2 of The Terror and Lovecraft Country?
I saw season 2 of The Terror.
Okay, and so that whole season was about sort of like possessing demons. I wonder if it's similar.
Well, that was the Yurei who could only possess the body of a descendant of the bloodline, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why she was stalking her great grandson, so she could be reborn in the body of the baby that was coming.
Right. I don't remember it that well. I thought she didn't want to be alone in her little paradise world, which was lonely, but your version makes a whole lot more sense.
Well, that may be true as well, because she did kill her ancestor, because her ancestor was, I guess, driving her wild. She wouldn't let her – she wanted to go back to the world of the living, but she was like, no, you can't. You've got to stay in the spirit world. This is where we belong. This is the little haven that I've made for us. You know, don't step on the sand because you'll get sucked into the ground and the demons will eat you. It was a lot. It was a big trip. But I do remember the mother wanting to take over the dead wanting to take over the baby so it could be reborn because it did want to go back into the world of the living.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed a little bit about Asian ghost stories versus sort of American or maybe European ghost stories is that Asian ghost stories are almost like misplaced or desperate love. It's like they're sort of sad and beautiful and scary at the same time, where American ones tend to just be angry.
Yeah.
Vengeful.
Yeah. Vengeful, yeah.
Though I will say the two Netflix series, the Hill House and Bly Manor, were very Asian in that regard, that the hauntings were based on geography and family and love and loneliness and sort of sadness, which I love both those shows. I sort of like that. I've read a book called it's called Under Heaven. It's by Guy Gabriel Kay, who writes a lot of sort of science fiction fantasy books, and it involved ghosts also. And it was either Japanese or Chinese. I think it was Chinese, but it was sort of similar. It was the spirits were definitely tied to things, but it was always about love and trying to complete things rather than to haunt and torment. That got me very off track. So, okay, in Lovecraft Country, there was the Vietnamese demon.
No, that was Korean.
She was Korean? Wasn't he? Yep. Right, Korean. You're right.
Yeah.
Exactly, Korean.
He was in the
Korean War, right. And it was the spirit of the fox, which I didn't get originally, why she was looking at the fox. I never put together the tails were fox tails.
I just thought it was hair. that was coming out of her body.
Well, she called them her tails, and then I think the second to last episode or whatever. Maybe we should talk a little bit about Lovecraft Country.
Yeah, the fox there is called the Kumiho.
Mm-hmm.
That was pretty cool because, like, I'm a big anime fan, and I watched Naruto, and so I'm just gonna geek out for a moment. And like the nine-tailed fox was called Kurama.
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was pretty cool because Japan has a nine-tailed fox, and apparently Korea has a nine-tailed fox. So yeah, I found that really, really cool.
That is cool. So yeah, so we've got these Asian demons who possess, and you can do a game which can, if you do it wrong, you get possessed by a demon for some indefinite period of time. I assume there's no way to get your soul back, or is there always an antidote?
I don't know that much. And it's not necessarily possession, but they do attach themselves to you. I know that much.
Yeah, I couldn't find any of that information, so I don't know.
Yeah, as far as reversing it, I don't know. Maybe you're just screwed for the rest of your life or longer. I don't know.
Yeah, while you're tearing apart people who get in your way.
Yeah, but it's not a game that I want to play at all. Whether it's real or fake or whatever. I mean, most likely it's not a real thing, but still, either way, I don't want to do it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I don't think I want to do it also, and it's just one of the many reasons I doubt I'll be in Korea playing elevator games.
Well, I mean, that's the thing. You don't have to. I mean, you can do it as long as you're in a building that has at least 10 floors. It can be anywhere, and that's what ties it into Elisa Lam, and you definitely need to look up her story. You might want to cover her story in the garden.
Well, we're doing a show now, so and you've mentioned it a few times, so I think you're obligated now to tell all of our listeners about Elisa Lam.
Well, the thing is, right now, there's too much of that story to get into, and I don't have the information in front of me, and I don't want to get it wrong. Unfortunately, there's a young lady who lost her life in this, and there's just a lot of mystery surrounding her death. But it is tied into the Korean elevator game, and there's video, some pretty disturbing video that you can find on YouTube of Elisa Lam, the last time she was ever seen. Because shortly after the disturbing video, she disappeared and discovered dead.
And no one's done like a movie based on this or a TV series based on this? This seems like something that somebody would have a field day with. Well,
actually, American Horror Story Hotel actually kind of loosely based the hotel on the hotel that Elisa Lam was staying at.
Oh.
And how there were, spirits and other weird occurrences going on there.
Spirits in the Night by Bruce Springsteen. Very good. That is spooky. I'm intrigued. Good tease there. I'll look into it. It might be something that the Garden of Doom needs to visit upon or have visited upon it. You never know with the garden. Do you want to talk about Lovecraft Country or another time?
Oh, well, we could talk about Lovecraft Country, sure.
Okay, I want to get your opinions on it because I'm not sure I've sorted out all of my thoughts on it. I think hearing other people will actually help me put things into place.
Okay, well, you already know how I feel about the ending. If they were going for shock value and that wow moment, then I'd say they got me. But I mean, other than that, I was speaking to Bobby about it, and I was like, me talking, does that make me sound racist? Talking about that, thinking that it's fucked up, that pretty much all magic gets taken away from white people and just only white people, because apparently they've had it the whole time, and now there's another race just hoarding magic, I guess, and it's only for them. And so, yeah, Bobby said that's not me being racist, but that's a little bit racist for the show, I guess.
Yeah, well, I thought it was a little trite. I mean, obviously, magic was a metaphor for power. But I mean, the world isn't just black and white. I mean, when she said it, a few things came to mind. First, like, where do other people that are not white come into it? Are they included in the magic, or are they not? I mean, where's Latinx? Where are Asian peoples? Where's the Middle Eastern peoples and Semitic peoples? Oh, that was my question. Are Jews who haven't really been, the dynamic of Jews being considered white is really less than 100 years old. So are Jews part of the magic, or are they left out of the magic? So I have a lot of sort of questions on that. I don't know if anyone can answer it. But the other thought that came to me was, and I think it's answered in the show, but what about mixed race people?
Right. I was going to say, what about my kids? Are they half magic?
Now, I think it was sort of
they can only
by
access
the
half
show.
of the magic.
I mean, they never really addressed it directly, but obviously the woman lead, I mean, she's obviously of mixed race somewhere. But we already know that, at least in one future, her child has magic and writes the book about the histories. But as they stress many times, that's only one possible future. But nevertheless, he still would be mixed race. But in the show, they never acknowledged her as mixed race. So just because she has had lighter skin doesn't mean her character had to be as well. So I'm not sure about your kids, and I'm not sure as people get more diluted, so to speak, or more mixed, as we all slowly become closer to looking like The Rock and Jennifer Lopez, does magic get weaker, or does it get is it more egalitarian and available to everybody?
Yeah, that's weird, and you make a good point. I never thought of that. Holy shit. Yeah, you would think. Now I'm starting to think about like Underworld and how the vampires wanted to keep their bloodline pure and only vampires, so they couldn't mix with the werewolves. It was considered a crime, basically, a crime against the species.
It is a crime against the species.
Yeah, I'm thinking of that in the same way, where it's like if you're diluting the bloodlines, and now the bloodline is now these people are the elites instead of the other people being the elites and the owners of magic. Like, how does that break down past generations? Like, do they only have access to certain types of magic and that kind of thing? And honestly, I can't answer that.
Yeah, I don't know. And like, I sort of figured out early on that the woman and the blonde guy were the same person. I didn't figure out exactly how it became that way, obviously. Well, maybe not obviously, but I didn't. I just saw that it was sort of like a brother and sister, and sort of like in Legion, how that the guy had the younger girl living inside him, and he was like the scientist, and she was sort of like the ninja.
Oh, yeah.
I thought it was sort of like that they, she could just shape shift, that she was both male and female.
I probably should have mentioned a little earlier, I've not seen the show. So.
Oh, I thought you watched it already.
No.
Okay.
I've not seen a single second of the show at all.
Do you want to?
Spoiler alert.
A little late.
A little too late, but
I've had concussions. I'll forget all about it by the end of this conversation.
Okay. Well, I'll just say, without giving away too many spoilers, I thought the first episode was almost exactly what I thought it was going to be, except it took a little bit longer to get there. I thought episode 2 was exactly what the series was going to be, except I figured that episode 2 was going to be, if not the rest of the season, like 6 or 7 episodes. And then the rest of the season just was sort of like a bloody mess to me. It was like, have you ever read British science fiction where it starts out really interesting, but then it goes into another dimension and you're still interested, but then in that other dimension, then there's talking dogs that have their own world. And then on the talking dogs, there's talking fleas that have their own world. And then those talking fleas talk to another dimension in the future that has their own world. And it's supposed to all be tied together. And at some point you're just like, I don't care about keeping all of this together anymore. And that's sort of how I feel about most British science fiction. It's just like Terry Pratchett and what's his name, China Melville, and a few Douglas Adams. It always goes like not just one level too much. Like even Bernard Lumpley with the vampire books, like it starts out great and then it goes one level past my comfort level. I'm like, okay, I can ride with this. But then it goes another and then another and another. I'm just like, I'm out. I'm done. So that's sort of how I felt with this show, that there was just like kept being all these levels and they were only like, I thought there were a bunch of different shows and they just sort of had the thinnest of line to try to keep them together as one story.
Yeah, for a few moments, I thought it was going to be an anthology series because each episode was kind of a standalone, and they had introduced like when the little girl got cursed and she was seeing the evil twins or whatever the hell they are, and they were following her everywhere.
Slowly.
Yeah, that kind of reminded me of being like something of its own episode, even though she was part of the family and so on and so forth. I did like the first episode at the end when the Shoggoths showed up and they just started devouring everything. I mean, I was like, I hope I see these things in every episode because they look so damn cool.
Yeah, that was fucking amazing. I wanted monsters every episode after.
Yeah.
Which we're not going to tell Bobby Anthem whether there were or weren't.
I guess they kind of decided to go to lean heavy on the politics of that time because well, not apparently, but it is based in 1950s Jim Crow America, and so it's a very politically charged show.
Sure, and that's okay. I mean, I happen to think that Watchmen did it better, but it's not like, show creators talk to each other and say, "Oh, well, you did it. I'm not covering this story my way." So, I mean, there's nothing wrong with that. I just think that Watchmen did, a similar theme better. But yeah, there was a lot of that, and in this time that we're in. So since it's a podcast, I think we should say it's October 31st, 2020. So in this time we're in, it's hard to say during this time of division and really a lot of racial tension, a lot of it very justified, to say something was heavy-handed, but it was a little heavy-handed. But I'll also confess that I have seen so many shows lately with similar themes, sort of in this like 40-year time window, that I was almost sort of sick of it before that. And not just the black and white dynamic. There was the Latin white dynamic in City of Angels, the Penny Dreadful show. There was the alternate reality Jew Nazi American story in Plot Against America on HBO, Watchmen, which was wonderful. But there was like a couple of other shows, and some of them were smaller and British shows and whatever. But obviously you're attracted to similar themes, so I watch these shows, and I think Bobby Anthem earlier said he's a completist. I'm sort of the same way too. It takes me a long time to quit on something, so I sort of felt like I've watched 5 or 6 shows with similar themes, sort of loosely between 1920 and 1960, and it was just one too many. And I was hoping for more Cthulhu and more Lovecraft and
more monsters. Yes.
Yeah, more monsters. I don't mind the social aspect to it. I mean, I understand and I appreciate it. I understand that Jordan
I'm just tired of it. I'm really tired of it because I feel like right now there's so much division in the world that we don't need the television shows kind of preaching to us that same thing and making us feel bad. I mean, if you're like me, then you probably already feel bad.
Well, the thing is, it's in the news. You don't want to see it in the news, but it's in the news every day. It's like it's in real life. So you want to go to entertainment to escape from the ugly realities of the world.
And
I know exactly what you mean. Except I have to tell you, I'm of two minds with that, because I understand exactly what both of you are saying, and I agree with that to an extent. But I also kind of feel that given the times we're in, and given the division, and given how frustrating some of the division is, that I almost think that I shouldn't be able to escape it even in the entertainment. So I think that maybe it's not wrong that I'm being hammered over the head with it in the entertainment venue with people I want to see succeed, with Jordan Peele, whose work I generally enjoy, and taking Lovecraft, which, is something that, I certainly enjoyed and have memories of, but only vague memories of. And certainly when I'm 12 years old, I if I was recognizing the racism and things like that, it just wasn't registering on my 11-year-old white suburban, brain.
Yeah. Well, as Bobby said, when I explained to him about the ending of Lovecraft Country, he told me that maybe that was the director's middle finger to H.P. Lovecraft, for being a huge racist.
I think that's partly what that was. If not completely, I think there is at least a little bit of that in there.
I was okay with the end, because if the series doesn't get renewed, it's almost like it ended. It's fine. The story's over. If they have another season, though, I don't think I'd be so. This is the wrong word, but I can't think of another one. I won't be so forgiving about it being heavy-handed a second season. I mean, I think it's made its point. And at some point, I want to watch a show because I like the characters and I like the plot. I mean, none of the characters were really all that likable besides Uncle George, who, well, I don't want to give any spoilers, but that was the Courtney B. Vance character. He was exceptionally likable. The little girl was very likable. And her mother, Hippolyta, I think was her name, or Hippolyta, she was less likable, but she got more likable.
Wonder Woman's mother.
Got zanier.
Yeah, well, when she traveled through space and time and came back with blue hair, I mean,
I kept the blue hair.
Yeah, I kept the blue hair.
Nice.
And nobody even made mention of it.
No, they didn't, which I thought is strange because how many people colored their hair blue back in those days?
In 1955, I would say zero.
I
understand that the little girl
strange.
drew it in her cartoon book.
Yeah,
and, I connected that, but still, I mean, I guess if you've been through space and time for 200 years and are basically a superhero, that you're not really you don't care what people are thinking. You stop giving any Fs.
Yeah, but I mean, Atticus or anybody else, they didn't even make mention of it. Like, hey, you're back and your hair is blue.
Right. Nobody said a thing. And Atticus wasn't really that likable. I mean, I don't know the actor's name, but he was Omar in The Wire, so of course I'm going to love him forever. But he wasn't that likable. Even the girlfriend, she wasn't likable. Really, not at all. She was nice to look at.
He seemed very milquetoast. He was like at one moment he was very strong, and then the next moment he was very emotional.
Yeah, he would cry a lot, and he was also, he was intellectual but impetuous. I mean, listen, I know this was part of what Peele's story was talking about, but everybody was too intelligent. I mean, there's no family where all of those folks are that intelligent on Earth. The Einstein family, isn't it? I mean, every one of them was like, Indiana Jones combined with James Bond. They all, quick minds. They could decode things. I have no idea how. I think was it Hippolyta or Hippolyta?
Hippolyta.
I mean, she unlocked the orrery, and it was sort of just like skimmed over how she knew how to do that.
Yeah, this was very National Treasury because they were solving a lot of puzzles, and they had that Indiana Jones moment there. Mm-hmm. But yeah, you're right. She was doing a lot of research. So where did she learn that? Did she learn that from Uncle George when they were together? And because he seemed to be the one who was the guy who figured all that stuff out.
Yeah, he was the patriarch that obviously instilled the love of knowledge and getting knowledge through science fiction to Atticus, and it seemed like I don't know the dad's name, Montrose. That Montrose sort of shared that, but I guess he never shared it with Atticus growing up, but he sort of kept it to himself, like a lot of other secrets that he had, that he was also a scholar. So, I get that. But it was sort of a surprise when Hippolyta became sort of the scholar too. I mean, she was always cool and understanding, and by cool, I don't mean like the Fawn School, but I mean cool-headed, level-headed. But it never really, I mean, she always seemed to have the traditional wife role where if George said he was going out on a guy trip, he went out on a guy trip, and she stayed home and, watched Dee and then took care of house and made sure that, the business ran and things like that. And he was sort of did the man stuff. But as it turns out, she was extremely capable, even before she became, the master of all space and time.
I can hear Doctor Who theme music playing right now.
Yeah, I thought the show was, I mean, in some ways I thought it was clumsy. And like, if somebody said, should I watch it? I think at this point I would almost say no.
Maybe watch the first episode and the second to final episode, because those are where you see the most Shoggoth action there.
Well, if you just want to see the giant vampire dogs, I mean, I get where you're coming from. I don't know that somebody would understand it. I mean, there's got to be easier ways to just see monsters killing people.
Yeah. Well, you probably have to watch the show the series a few times, and then maybe we'll understand all the nuances of it. But watching it for the first time, it became very hard to follow after the third episode for me.
Yeah. It got clunky. I mean, it felt like you said, there was one episode that was very Indiana Jones, National Treasure. Then there was another episode that was sort of like, almost like Mississippi Burning. And then there was an episode that was maybe more like a James Bond kind of thing, or, a cop show. It's just, each one sort of felt like its own movie that wasn't really well tied together. At least I didn't find it well tied together, but I'm not the dumbest guy in the world.
Oh, I do have a question. Something that I just thought of right now. When,
I thought you were going to say, the way you'd said that, I thought you'd say, oh, you are the dumbest guy in the world.
No, I'm not going to say that, man.
That would have been great. You should have.
When Christina spelled herself and then she paid somebody to do some things to her, what was the purpose of that? Because they never really explained it. Was that in preparation for the final ritual or something?
I just thought that it was something, that there was some sort of character development that they left in the show and they dropped the rest of it.
There was no payoff to that, though. That it was just kind of there.
Yeah,
and then it wasn't.
And there were a few things like that where I feel like the show probably had like 20 episodes in it, but and a lot of it was to develop the characters, and at some point they just said, nah, we're doing 10 episodes, that's it, cut all, this stuff is getting edited out. So I know what you're talking about. That was my only thought about it. I don't know them, right? There's somebody, what, I never listened to the companion podcast about it. Maybe they went into things, but I didn't like it enough to do so. And the first two episodes were pretty straightforward, so I didn't feel like I needed to do it. And by episode 3, I sort of felt like, this has already jumped the shark.
Yeah. Bobby's probably sitting back there saying, I don't think I want to see this.
Well, I'm not, we all have limited time for entertainment and recreation. I'm not, if he said to me, Jeff, you're the ones deciding what I do for 10 or 11 hours, am I watching Lovecraft Country? I'd probably say no. There's other things you can do with your time that's better. And if you want to, get that theme, if you want to, feel that sort of racial division, but in a more entertaining and in a better way, then watch Watchmen, the series Watchmen, not the movie, because that was fabulous.
That's what I've heard.
I thought it was excellent. I mean, I thought it was unbelievable television, and I'm sad that it's not renewed. But it's sort of.
I'm surprised it wasn't renewed because I have not heard a single negative thing about it.
Here's what happened. It was renewed, but the creative team left. They said they were going to leave. They were going to do other projects, and HBO decided that nobody else would do it just right, or I guess
Okay.
we're going to try to figure out who that would be, and maybe it would take 2 years to
Okay.
get to season 2. So
That was
they
probably
told
the
us,
best course of action then.
yeah, saw what happened with Game of Thrones.
Yeah, so they made the right choice.
Probably. I mean, we'll never know, but I mean, I don't think that anybody would waste their time, would consider their time wasted by watching it just because the ending wasn't a complete encapsulated ending. I mean, when is anything completely encapsulated in life anyway? I mean, only Breaking Bad really had a perfect ending, and they still felt the need to do a movie.
Mm.
I guess The Sopranos was a pretty perfect ending too.
Some people would take issue with that.
I know, but they're wrong.
So,
Any last thoughts?
well, we covered a lot of Halloween, which is the reason we came here today. So I'm pleased with that because I actually learned some things, man. I wasn't sure if I was going to actually learn things, but I did. And it put everything right in a line. You laid everything right out for me. So that's pretty cool. We talked some other spooky stuff. We talked some superstition and got to the roots of those things.
But not the square root of 13, because that makes it that's one of the reasons it's unlucky.
That makes it worse.
Yeah.
So, yeah, man. So we did a lot of good here. You guys talked Lovecraft. I didn't know what the hell you were talking about. So we're all good, man. What do you have, Blades?
Well, I actually learned many things that I did not even know about Halloween. And by no means did I think that I knew everything, but I thought I knew a lot more about Halloween than your average everyday person. But it turns out I know just as little as everybody else.
Not anymore.
That's my take on it. Yeah. But it was really cool to know of these other cultures, mostly based in the Southern Hemisphere, like you said, that actually celebrated the dead in their own way and around the same time.
Yeah, I mean, that was news to me as well. I learned most of this within the last, 1 week, calendar-wise. But listen, I really appreciate you allowing the Garden of Doom to take its hovercraft and visit the Uncanny Valley this week. And, we're going to ship ourselves back over to the Garden of Doom. And if you want to check us out, please check out myself and Shaheen at Garden of Doom. Shaheen also has a podcast called Breaking the Apocalypse, which is very funny. Also talking about the apocalypse, but from a much more comedic standpoint with a couple of mutual friends of ours, Bisha O'Brien and the John Draper. Also, you can check out Shaheen's artwork, Nuclear Heat Graphics, and was a Chair Shot Tees. So he's got some great stuff. He does commissions on artwork, so check his stuff out. Hit him up. He does really high-quality work. I've got something hanging in my home that he's done as well. Also, I have a second podcast as well called Hammerlock Hangover. There's all of 2 episodes so far, but it's a wrestling podcast. So it's only been the last 2 Thursdays, so it's fairly timely. So give it a listen, and it's about an hour and 10 minutes long, so it's not a terribly long listen. But yeah, I appreciate being here. Thank you, fellas. I really enjoyed myself.
Anytime.
Pretty cool. Absolutely, man. Thank you. Blades, where can they find us?
Well, you can go to your favorite podcatcher of choice and just look for the Inhuman Experience podcast. We are the one with the 2 faces in front of the pyramid, just in case, there's another one. Yeah, and you can find us on Twitter at our new handle at Inhuman Cafe. Go to IEX_pod on Instagram and, follow us there. Check out our Patreon at Inhuman EX Podcast. We got a lot of cool stuff coming.
We just recently put something up.
Yes. It's hilarious. Bobby Anthem tells a wonderful story about how he got an STD from a loogie.
A potato may have given me herpes.
Once again, that's at patreon.com/InhumanEX podcast.
Somebody has a sugar high from too much candy.
Haven't even started on the candy yet, my friend.
Excellent. All right. Well, thank you very much. Again, I always have fun with you guys. So.
Yeah, likewise.
Well, Anthem, I've got to delete you from Facebook because apparently it isn't you.
Wait, man, keep a close eye on the guy who's supposedly me. I need to know what I'm up to.
If he posts any photographs, look at them and see if he's got dreadlocks or if it's just somebody's old mop.
Okay. Will do.
All right.
All right, guys. Take care.
Streaming only on Peacock.
John Wayne Gacy is suspected of having killed as many as 32.
Straight from the killer's mouth.
They want you to believe that I alone committed these murders.
The new gripping 6-part documentary series that investigates the crimes that shocked the nation.
The thing everybody thought they knew wasn't the whole story.
John Wayne Gacy, Devil in Disguise. All episodes streaming now.
Devil in disguise.
Only on Peacock.
The case of the Long Island serial killer is still unsolved. Follow us, Billy Jensen and Alexis Linkletter, as we investigate the untold story of the Long Island serial killer. 11 victims, 10 years, and countless theories.
It was just how many bodies were being found in one area. I was shocked.
And for us, this case is personal. You can follow our investigation in our all-new special, Unraveled, The Long Island Serial Killer, streaming now on Discovery+.